Picking up the drinks, I saw a man approaching. He was obviously enjoying the free bar at my wife's uncle's wake. She very rarely sees her parents or returns to her hometown, but when we do, we invariably run into some guy like this. "Are you Helen's husband? Your wife is the best whore I've ever had in my life." He laughed. I just smiled and agreed. He seemed shocked that I didn't defend her honor, but I took it as a compliment. Helen is amazing in bed. She's had a lot of practice. I looked him in the eye and said, "Just imagine how good it feels when she loves you. Your best isn't even my normal. My normal is so good you can't even imagine it." I walked away, leaving him with his mouth open. Helen was a whore, slut, or harlot. It was strange that names for women who loved sex and had a high libido were so offensive. Men were studs, womanizers, or lady killers. Men were patted on the back, nudged, and, with a wink, congratulated for sowing their wild oats. Women were ridiculed and shunned for loose morals and even sexual impulses. The source of male pride became a source of shame for women. The same men who were happy to go to bed with a woman with a high libido sought only to marry a good girl with a low body count. Then they often wondered why this inexperienced wife was not as eager as they had hoped to rekindle the flame in the marriage bed. Helen had seen it all in her own family. Her brother Jeff was a real stud. He had a different girl every week and every night. He was a hero among his buddies, a handsome womanizer who gladly gave them his leftovers when he left. More than once, he even acted as best man when a former partner married one of his buddies. The bridesmaids giggled that Jeff was best man in every way you could think of. In that, Jeff and Helen were alike. She, too, had a high libido. The only difference was that she was a girl, which was a terrible double standard. Jeff wouldn't be happy to know that she enjoyed going around all his buddies, and sometimes two at a time. Helen loved being desired and being recognized by men as attractive. She felt her power when confronted by an aroused man. "I did it," she thought. "This is all for me. I made them tense up." Of course, not being a man, Helen didn't realize that for some of the older teenagers she rode with, a gust of wind could make them tense up. The mere vibration of the bus was almost enough to make them end up in their pants. Older men, starved for the caresses of their unfortunate middle-aged wives, became aroused at the mere suggestion of sex with any willing woman, especially a young and attractive one. That was part of the problem. Helen had never considered herself attractive as a child. Her parents had always favored Jeff, their golden boy. Jeff was good at everything. He was handsome, smart, intelligent, and excelled at sports. Helen, on the other hand, was plain and ordinary, with disheveled hair and protruding teeth. When she turned 17, Helen discovered that the best thing about blonde hair was how easily it could be turned blonde. When she turned 18, she finally had her braces removed. Instead of protruding teeth, she had other protruding body parts. She had large breasts, and they were the first thing boys paid attention to. The ugly duckling had turned into a swan, a very sexy swan. Helen had plenty of time to make up for lost time, and she was making up for lost time in all seriousness. She didn't care about their looks. It was all about their desire to possess her. She belonged to them as long as they were clean, smelled nice, and looked special to her. Of course, the reputation didn't last long. Jeff called her a slut, but he couldn't realize that she was just a female version of him. He couldn't realize that his sister was like the girls he regularly partied with. Of course, their parents sided with Jeff and tried to make Helen feel bad and ashamed. Jeff wouldn't be happy if he found out that she was having regular sex with old Mr. Preston, her boss at the newspaper store. He was well into his 60s, but some parts of him still worked like a teenager. The first time he'd risked rubbing up against Helen behind the counter, he'd been amazed at her enthusiastic reaction to it. She couldn't get enough of him, and he was pleased that he still had the fantastic ability to recuperate as he had in his youth. For a time, Mrs. Preston showed no interest in him, and accordingly he never looked forward to going to work so eagerly. Soon she left home and began working in a hotel. Mr. Preston wept when she applied at the newspaper store. He did indeed weep. She made it up to him by doing for him what Mrs. Preston had never done for him in nearly 40 years of marriage. He was much happier after that. mostly when Helen said that he could come to her hotel whenever he felt like it, and she would give him a discount on the room. Mr. Preston lived like that for several years until one day he died suddenly. She never knew whether Mrs. Preston had wondered why her husband was found in a hotel in another town than the one he said he had visited to select new merchandise. Lucky the coroner didn't mention that Mr. Preston was covered in a fair amount of baby oil when he was found. He was also smiling. A lot. It was the perfect job for Helen. She had a way with people and was very efficient. Plus, she had a wide range of salespeople, businessmen, and a large staff eager to share the bed of the busty blonde in the reception area. Her manager, Carlos, looked the other way as he too was not averse to enjoying Helen's charms. Moreover, Carlos had a little cuckoldry that he could never realize in a real relationship. Therefore, he liked nothing better than listening to Helen's tales of debauchery. He could pretend that his girl was a cuckold and he could have her back to himself. He loved hearing about how big other men were. The bigger the better for Carlos. Sometimes Helen wondered if Carlos would like to experience them himself. All of Helen's adventures ended when she met me. I'm her husband, Alex. Do her earlier adventures bother me? Does her huge body count make me feel insecure? No, not at all. Do I get horny when she tells me about her adventures? Hell no. It doesn't excite me, but it doesn't bother me either. It's in the past. Her past. In college, I was a Jack the Kid myself. I may not have the most enormous size she's ever experienced. I seem to remember her telling me it belonged to a South African exchange student who was staying at the hotel. I may not even be the best sex of her life. Her eyes get misty when she talks about the Welsh rugby team celebrating their victory with her. I'm good, but I can't pull off a whole team. What man can? However, I am the only man who makes love to her. That makes me the most important and the best in her eyes. It was just sex. Isn't that what all cheating wives say when they are found out? In Helen's case, it's true. It was just sex. It felt good to her, but I was the first man to truly love her. I was the first man she felt loved her unconditionally until the kids came along and loved her too. Do I worry that she has lost her way? No. We are both committed to each other and completely monogamous. People get itchy feet because they wonder if the grass is greener. We both know it's not. Why would we risk everything we have for a quick connection with someone else? Why would I hurt my best friend and she hurt me? That's why I'm going to convince both of my sons to avoid virgins when they're looking for a bride. Retired hookers are a much safer and more enjoyable bet in my eyes.